Caitlin Clark stimulus package, also known as the newly agreed upon CBA deal. Make no mistake about it, folks. Every time the owners came to the table and said, fine, we'll increase the salary cap to this, you can thank Caitlin Clark. Every time the owner said, fine, we'll pay for your housing again, you can thank Caitlin Clark. Every time the owner said, shoot, we really don't want to come up off this 15% number, but you know what? We'll move a little bit. You can thank CC20.
Aya Wilson did not see this coming. Nobody who spent the last 2 years convincing themselves that the Caitlin Clark conversation was overblown, that the hype was just media construction, that the ratings would eventually cool, and that the league already had its stars long before Clark arrived and would continue on without all the extra noise saw this coming. Because the WNBA has just ratified the most significant collective bargaining agreement in the history of professional women's basketball.
A'ja Wilson and all her Glazers could give a big thank you to Caitlin Clark for her getting paid. Ever since the league came to an agreement, all we've been hearing about is how A'ja Wilson is about to sign this historic Supermax deal like she just did it all on her own. No, you could thank Caitlin Clark for revolutionizing the game so you could get paid. We don't care how many MVPs and championships A'ja won or how she was already known. It doesn't matter. She didn't change the dynamic of the league for the players that get paid like this.
The salary cap jumped from $1.5 million to $7 million. The average player salary rose from around $120,000 to more than $600,000. The minimum salary crossed $300,000, real, transformative money, the kind of numbers veteran players in this league have been pushing for long before Caitlin Clark was even in the league. And one of the first contract figures to circulate was Clark's, moving from $78,066 in 2025 to $530,000 in 2026. And now the entire conversation around the league has shifted at once.
For example, 2024 Rookie of the Year Caitlin Clark, who made $78,066 in 2025, is poised to see her salary jump to $530,000 in 2026. So this year, she is about to jump to that salary, okay? Now, the other jump, the new provision would also be applicable to younger stars such as Aaliyah Boston, who is max eligible in 2026, and Paige Beckers, who is max eligible in 20.
Here is what actually happened. The WNBA and the Players Association spent 17 months locked in negotiations that everyone in women's basketball knew were coming. The old CBA was a relic, built for a league still fighting for mainstream relevance, not one that was breaking viewership records, selling out arenas and markets that hadn't seen that level of demand in years, and commanding broadcast interest that would have been unthinkable just a few seasons earlier. And at the center of that growth, across nearly every major metric that mattered, was one player whose arrival coincided with a sharp rise in attention, attendance, and national conversation around the league.
Why they had the battery in the back that they had was because of Caitlin Clark's impact. All of the numbers and the metrics that the players could point to, do you see these ratings? Well, Caitlin Clark effect. Oh, do you see this attendance? Well, Caitlin Clark effect. Do you see the social media impressions? Well, Caitlin Clark effect. This is called the Caitlin Clark stimulus package, and it will go down as...
So when the new CBA arrived in March 2026, it introduced a mechanism nobody wanted to explicitly name after a single player. It was referred to as the EPIC provision, a fast-track salary structure tied to exceptional early career impact, designed for players who reshape the financial and commercial trajectory of the league before their rookie contract even ends. Caitlin Clark's name never appears in the official language of the rule. It doesn't need to. In every room where the deal was discussed, everyone understood exactly who the framework was built to account for. The EPIC provision is the league's way of formally acknowledging, without saying it directly, that not all players enter the system on the same scale. Some athletes generate a different level of impact and require a different structure to match it.
So this WNBA collective bargaining agreement will fast-track the ability for players on a rookie-scale contract to make maximum and supermax salaries, sources told ESPN. The new provision, called EPIC, Exceptional Performance on Initial Contract, allows players to renegotiate their 4-year salary and earn the standard max that year if they were previously an all-WNBA first team or second team, or the Supermax if they won in the...
Let's put the numbers on the table, because the numbers are the only part of this story that speaks clearly without softening anything. In 2025, Caitlin Clark, the player who helped push the WNBA to its highest visibility in years, who drove unprecedented ratings, filled opposing arenas and markets that hadn't seen that demand in a long time, and became a central figure in the league's surge in attention, earned $78,066. That figure sits in the same range as many entry-level professional salaries in other fields, and it stands in stark contrast to what comparable top rookies earn in leagues like the NBA, NFL, or MLB. Meanwhile, Clark was producing at an all-star level, setting records, driving ticket sales, and becoming a consistent national broadcast draw in a way the league had not experienced in years. The gap between her on-court impact and her compensation became one of the most discussed realities in professional sports. And it's part of what made the new CBA such a turning point. It represents the league's acknowledgement, long overdue, that its economic structure had to evolve alongside the level of attention and revenue its top players were generating.
What has now happened is, because of the quote-unquote epic rule, I'm going to call it the Caitlin rule, because let's be real, she was the first person to have reached this. Whether it be it's Caitlin, Aaliyah, and Paige are all eligible. I'm just going to call it the Caitlin rule. Just like the old Rose rule in the NBA, we're going to call it the Caitlin rule. So, ironically, if Caitlin goes and wins MVP this year, she's actually eligible for the Supermax in 2020.
Now in 2026, that changes. Clark's salary jumps to $530,000, a raise of more than 500%, and over 6 times what she earned the previous season. And before anyone starts framing this as the league finally getting it right, there's still context that matters. That $530,000 figure is a major increase, but it remains small compared to her total market value. By end 2025, Clark's overall earnings were estimated at around $16.1 million, coming from a mix of salary, endorsements, appearances, and major brand partnerships with companies like Nike, State Farm, Gatorade, Wilson, and others. By that point, she was already among the highest-earning female athletes in the world. That means her WNBA salary represented only a small fraction of her total income. Even with a jump to $530,000, the league's direct compensation still reflects a gap between on-court pay and broader commercial value. The increase itself is significant and long overdue, but it also highlights a larger reality of modern professional sports. The difference between what a league can pay under its structure and what a global marketing phenomenon can generate across the entire sports economy.
The way the team is structured, in order for this team to remain intact, Sophie would have to be willing to take a league minimum kind of deal, which is around $300,000. And I don't see that happening. Okay, and I believe also people are going to be shocked how much money Lexi Hull is about to be offered, because I think she's going to get offered $600,000 to $700,000 by somebody, and that is going to greatly complicate things.
But here is where the story stops feeling like a celebration and starts feeling like a chess problem. Because when Clark's salary rises to $530,000, that money does not appear in isolation. It exists inside a hard cap system. The WNBA's new salary cap is set at $7 million. That is the total payroll limit for an entire roster, covering every player from star to bench depth. Everything has to fit inside that structure. Clark's new deal now takes up a meaningful share of that cap on its own, and while that reflects her value within the system, it also introduces a practical roster-building challenge. Indiana still has to account for extensions, core contributors, and the depth needed to compete over a full season. This is where cap dynamics become unavoidable. When a franchise player's salary rises alongside the rest of a developing core, the margin for flexibility shrinks. Teams are forced to make sharper decisions about allocation, depth, and timing. And for Indiana, that means the next phase of building around Clark will not just be about talent acquisition, it will be about balance.
I wish they would have had Kelsey Mitchell on here, because after last season, I mean, look, Kelsey finished what, third or fourth in the MVP voting? This is her contract to make as much money as she possibly can, I believe, in this league. And come next year, because I don't think that the Fever are going to be able to keep her next season. And one could argue, depending on how much you covet depth on a team, like how deep do you want your team to be? I think one could argue against re-signing Kelsey Mitchell this year.
Let's talk about Kelsey Mitchell, because she's the conversation national coverage keeps underestimating. Mitchell is one of the most dangerous scoring guards in the league and arguably the second most important player on the Indiana Fever roster. She's now at a contract crossroads that the new CBA has made significantly more expensive to navigate. She was already a key free agent retention case before 2025, and Indiana used the core designation to keep her on a one-year deal under the updated structure. If the Fever core her again in 2026, which is still their most realistic short-term path, her salary jumps to around $1.4 million on a Supermax deal. That's exactly the value for a player of her production level, but it also represents roughly 20% of a $7 million cap tied to one player who is not Caitlin Clark. At the same time, Aaliyah Boston becomes max eligible this offseason, and Clark herself, through the Epic provision, projects toward a 3-year max structure starting around $1.3 million in 2027 and rising toward roughly $1.7 million on a Supermax trajectory by 2028. Now laid out clearly, Clark adds $1.3 million Boston at Ma Mitchell. At $1.4 million, just those 3 contracts already consume well over half of Indiana's total cap space. And that's before you account for a starting point guard, wing depth, front-court rotation pieces, and the bench units that actually decide playoff series. This is the real impact of the new CBA from a roster-building perspective. Not just higher salaries, but tighter decisions. Indiana's front office isn't just building a team anymore. They're solving a financial structure problem while trying to stay competitive in real time.
Kelsey Mitchell to take a 1-year deal instead of a multi-year deal is due to this. Aaliyah Boston is eligible for the Supermax this year. The following year, Caitlin Clark is eligible for a Supermax, which could be worth $1.7 million, actually close to $2 million. So, who are you going to invest in? Kelsey Mitchell or Caitlin Clark? And that's why I say, don't play this game, Fever. I'm talking to organizations. I'm talking to Amber Cox, Kelly Crosskoff, and definitely Stephanie White. Don't mess this up. Please, for the love of God, do not mess this up. I don't mind if Kelsey Mitchell comes back for 1 year, but 1 year only.
This is a classic small market cap squeeze, a pattern professional sports has seen repeatedly across leagues whenever a franchise player becomes valuable enough to reshape an entire payroll structure. You build something promising. You identify your core. The star earns the raise she deserves, one driven by performance, revenue impact, and undeniable market gravity. Every number justifies it, and then the arithmetic arrives. The supporting cast starts to thin out, not because teams want it to, but because the cap cannot sustain everyone at market value at the same time. Role players become expensive. Depth becomes harder to retain. The same roster that once functioned with balance and flexibility gradually tightens as each offseason forces difficult choices and unavoidable exits. Clark's raise is both deserved and inevitable. The cap pressure is also inevitable. These are not opposing truths. They are the same reality viewed from different angles. One of growth and one of constraint.
Tired of the mindset of just be grateful for what you have. No, we need to dive into it. We need to have better workplaces, practice facilities, and it's not just for the women of the league now. We're talking about the women coming up, the future.
Right,
we want them to have a safe space to where they can perform at a high level and get that revenue share and to live on a salary that is what they've earned.
That's livable.
That is livable.
You don't have to go over to Europe, go to other places.
Absolutely.
Aya Wilson is impossible to leave out of any honest conversation about money, value, and recognition in the WNBA. She is a two-time MVP, an Olympic gold medalist, a WNBA champion, and one of the most accomplished players the league has ever seen. Her resume speaks for itself in a way very few athletes in any sport can match. At the same time, the recent shift in the league's financial and commercial landscape has created a new dynamic. Caitlin Clark's arrival coincided with a major surge in visibility, attendance, and sponsorship attention across women's basketball, along with record-breaking endorsement earnings that placed her among the highest-paid athletes in the sport overall. When reports like Sportico's 2025 earnings rankings place Clark at the top tier of global female athlete income, while veterans like Wilson were not in the same commercial bracket, it added a new layer to an already ongoing conversation about value, visibility, and recognition in the sport. Wilson has long been one of the most vocal advocates for pay equity in the league, and the new CBA she helped push for represents a major collective win for players as a whole. But it also arrives in a moment where the distribution of attention and endorsement power in the sport is shifting quickly, and not always evenly. That creates a complex reality where competitive greatness, legacy, and financial recognition do not always move in sync, and where even historic players are navigating a rapidly changing economic landscape for the first time in their careers.
A'ja Wilson clearly hates Caitlin Clark. I mean, clearly. What bothered her the most was the fact that she got this popularity, and she actually said it herself that she felt like history was being erased. Read the magazine. Read the article. She really hates Caitlin Clark. On top of that, the writer, whoever wrote this, hates her too, because she said, yeah, Caitlin Clark brought this toxic fanship, brought the toxicity to the league. I'm like, whoa, 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 whoa. That's nonsense. That's straight bullshit. This league always has toxicity. Y'all just being exposed, because there was plenty of players, including Sue Bird, that said there was racism in the league. Sue Bird said it. Okay?
I can't frame this in a way that reduces the WNBA or its players to a Clark versus everyone else hierarchy, or suggests that only one type of player creates value for the league. That flattens what's actually a much more complex system. What is accurate and worth focusing on is this. The new CBA is designed around a mix of factors: competitive excellence, player marketability, league-wide revenue growth, broadcast value, and long-term stability. In that system, different players contribute in different ways, and those contributions don't always look the same on a spreadsheet or in highlight-driven narratives. Aya Wilson's impact is primarily defined through sustained elite performance, championships, MVP-level dominance, and international success. Things that directly shape competitive credibility and legacy, which are also core drivers of league value over time. Caitlin Clark's impact, on the other hand, has been strongly associated with a rapid surge in viewership, media attention, arena attendance, and commercial interest that coincided with her entry into the league. That kind of visibility affects the business side of the sport in a more immediate way. Both types of impact matter to a growing league. One builds competitive history and legitimacy over years. The other can accelerate exposure and audience expansion in the short term. The CBA inevitably has to account for both, which is why modern structures increasingly blend traditional performance value with broader market realities. The real tension isn't who matters more, but how a league fairly balances sustained excellence with sudden audience expansion while keeping competitive equity intact.
Indiana Fever guard Caitlin Clark, speaking from experience, players like me are going to be the ones that I think feel it the most, and that's what I think we're all super proud of, because that's what we set out from the beginning, was making sure every player felt a change in the CBA, and that's exactly what has happened. New York Liberty forward Breanna Stewart, the deal is going to be transformational. It's going to build up and help create a system where everybody's getting exactly what they deserve, and more from on the court and the off-court aspects. Just excited that we can tell our fans that we're going to be back.
Here is what the next 3 years actually look like. Clark earns $530,000 in 2026, still widely viewed as one of the most underpriced contracts in professional women's sports. It is a real, official figure, but one that continues to sit far below her overall commercial and league impact. By 2027, she becomes eligible for a max deal worth around $1.3 million. And if her trajectory continues the way it has since the 2024 WNBA draft, when 2.4 million viewers tuned in to watch her selection and signaled a major shift in the league's visibility, she is projected to reach a $1.7 million supermax level by 2028. Each step up that salary ladder will bring renewed attention and debate across the league. Veterans who came up in a much lower-paying system will naturally compare timelines, production, and recognition. Some reactions will be measured and supportive. Others will be more critical, and that tension is almost inevitable in a league adjusting to rapid financial change. But Clark's raises are not simply about goodwill or symbolic recognition. They reflect a formal recalibration embedded in a collective bargaining agreement negotiated over 17 months. In practical terms, it acknowledges a simple reality. One player's presence has had a measurable impact on the league's revenue, visibility, and commercial reach in a way that reshapes how value is defined at the highest level.
The Caitlin Clark stimulus package, also known as the newly agreed upon CBA deal. Make no mistake about it, folks. Every time the owners came to the table and said, fine, we'll increase the salary cap to this, you can thank Caitlin Clark. Every time the owner said, fine, we'll pay for your housing again, you can thank Caitlin Clark. Every time the owner said, shoot, we really don't want to come up off this 15% number, but you know what? We'll move a little bit. You can thank CC22. And on the player side, the only reason why
Aya Wilson can be frustrated, and veterans across the league can question how this new distribution of money takes shape. Fans can debate what deserved looks like in a league that is still actively defining its economic identity. Those conversations are valid, and they are part of a broader transition the WNBA is going through in real time. But one thing is no longer theoretical. Caitlin Clark's value to the league is now reflected in the structure itself. It is not just opinion or narrative. It is written into contracts and cap economics, with a salary moving from $530,000 toward a projected $1.7 million within a system where the entire salary cap was $1.5 million just a short time ago. The WNBA that once operated under a much smaller financial framework is now adjusting to a new reality, one where its most visible players are tied directly to rapidly expanding revenue expectations, broadcast reach, and commercial demand. That creates a league-wide adjustment period. Teams will have to operate within tighter strategic limits, make harder roster decisions, and balance rising top-end salaries with a need for depth and competitiveness. In that sense, the story is no longer just about one player or one contract. It is about an entire league learning, in real time, how to function inside a much larger financial scale than it has ever had before.